bueno, que lo hagan por puta. Déjalo ahí. Déjalo ahí.
I can't reach it. It's up by her.
En la oficina de Cory, ellos insistían en que nos bajáramos del auto, pero no bajamos porque ya la abogada nos había dicho. Y yo frente de él trato de ser fuerte ahora, ser fuerte y para que él también esté tranquilo. Y me preocupa mucho lo que está pasando mi hijo ahorita. Y ya está dejando de comer por lo que estamos pasando también. Entonces,
I've been doing immigration work for 27 years, and this was the first time that I saw such violent, drastic measures being taken. He's never committed any criminal conduct. He's never been involved in any criminal conduct. There really was no reason to treat him the way that he and his wife were treated.
This morning at St. Peter's Basilica, the faithful lining up to say goodbye. At the center, facing the pews, the coffin carrying Pope Francis, the late pontiff requesting it not be elevated so he could be on the same level with the people he served.
I think the Pope made an impact on the world, and I think his message of peace and tolerance is one that we could all subscribe to.
The long goodbye started early this morning.
In nomine Patris.
American Cardinal Kevin Farrell, known as the Carmelengo, presiding over a moment of prayer inside the chapel of the Santa Marta papal residence. Cardinals filling the rows, some praying for the late Pope as they prepare to choose a successor. Then the procession to the Vatican. Crowds gathered in St. Peter's Square. The public will get 3 days to pay their respects to Pope Francis. So many waiting for that chance.
How long are you guys going to wait?
Until I have to.
As long as it takes. Yeah? Why?
Believers. We're believers.
The funeral and mass will take place Saturday morning and will be attended by heads of state from around the world, including President Trump and President Zelensky. Prince William will also be there representing the British royal family. And the Vatican now releasing new details about the Pope's final hours. Among his last words, "Thank you for bringing me back to the square." A heartfelt gratitude to his personal healthcare assistant for encouraging him to take one last ride in the Pope-mobile on Easter Sunday. After that last appearance, he rested, had a quiet dinner, but awoke not feeling well before falling into a coma. The Vatican saying that according to those who were with the Pope in his final moments, he did not suffer.
And Tom, what is the sentiment and feeling among the people who have come and they want to pay their respects to this Pope?
You know, Savannah, I've had a chance to speak with dozens of people who have been waiting in line. And the thing that really struck me is the impact that Pope Francis had in their lives. These people, as we look at the crowds here in St. Peter's Square, will be waiting hours and hours. They're unclear how long they have to wait just to get a few seconds with Pope Francis. That speaks to his impact. And what you get is that regardless of your relationship with God, the people here believe there is something bigger than this life here. And that's what they want to talk to Pope Francis about. They're also very curious, Savannah. A lot of people here that I spoke to right after they said they're going to pray for Pope Francis, they also asked me that they want to know what's going to happen next, what's going to happen in the conclave, and who will be the next leader of the Catholic Church. Savannah?
All right, Tom, thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for watching. And don't forget, you can catch the Today Show every morning on NBC or take Today when you're on the go. Just follow the Today podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.
proposed Muslim community is set to be built just northeast of Dallas, and it's causing major political clash among some North Texans, among developers and state leaders, in fact, as well. So the proposition for the community near Josephine, Texas. Today, the Collin County commissioners got together, hosted a public hearing. They got together to talk about the project. Nicole Nielsen was there to listen in. She's live for us. So what'd they talk about? Tell us what you heard.
Doug, if you can believe it, this meeting is actually still going on. It started at 1:30 this afternoon. So really, what didn't they talk about? Community members really going to the podium and discussing their concern about the development going against the Fair Housing Act and really going against anybody who isn't Muslim from living there.
You want to say that we are against inclusion because we speak against this, but that is exactly what a community like this is against. Why else would they want their own community? What is the purpose of them having their own community?
Sharia law is so far away from our Constitution of our protecting our inalienable rights and our freedom of speech that it is totally incongruent with anything that we can allow.
Now, for context, this project is called Epic City because it's being led by the East Plano Islamic Center, which is one of North Texas's largest mosques. It's planned to cover more than 400 acres near Josephine and will include 1,000 homes, a faith-based school, a mosque, apartments, and a senior living facility and more. The developers say the goal is to create a vibrant, self-sustaining community for Muslims, but the project has sparked controversy around the state. Governor Greg Abbott has publicly expressed concerns that it would promote Sharia law, which is a set of Islamic religious principles that govern daily life, instead of U.S. constitutional law. Attorney General Ken Paxton also announced he's investigating any potential violation of state consumer protection laws. Planning representatives were here today and were expected to give a presentation, but didn't. Instead, we spoke to them off camera about the claims that Epic City would go against the Fair Housing Act. They say the notion that the community would only allow Muslims to live there is false and that anyone with any race, background, or ethnicity is allowed to purchase plots. In fact, they went on to say that they would even welcome those from other religions to live there or even build churches or temples there. We also asked if it would be a Sharia law city like Governor Greg Abbott had tweeted, and they said absolutely not. Now, as I mentioned, of course, this meeting, it is still going on. Representatives for the development project said that they possibly will speak at the end of this meeting, but of course, we'll be reporting more on all of this tonight at 10. In McKinney, Nicole Nielsen, CBS News, Texas.
You know, elephants are very in tune to their environment, and picking up environmental cues allows them to make decisions. And they sensed something was off and potentially dangerous. And so immediately they ran together and formed what we call an alert circle. And Micaiah, the youngest, was in the center of that circle. So this is a defense mechanism that elephant herds do to protect the family unit. Ndula and Mgani are 35 years old. And then there's Kosi, she's 18. And then you have the two youngsters, Zuli and Micaiah, who are 7. Elephants also have the ability to feel sound through their feet. And so, you know, they're connected to the earth. They're feeling the sound from the earthquake. They're listening. Their ears are out. Zuli at one point puts his trunk up and he's smelling the air to see if, can I smell where the danger is coming from? Kosi keeps turning her body and touching Zuli with her trunk to just kind of check on him. And what's interesting too is he's outside of the circle and not necessarily in the middle of the two adult females like Micaiah is. And Micaiah and him are only a month apart. But as a young male, he will eventually age and grow older and move out of the family unit, where the females stay with their family unit their whole life. For people who live in San Diego, how many people have family members outside of San Diego? And the first thing that they do is they reach out to you and say, are you okay? Is everything okay? And that's sort of what you see the elephants doing in that moment.
So it looks as if small groups of men, women and children made that first push into America about 13,500 years ago. Using their sophisticated tools, they made the most of their new home and spread right across the continent from coast to coast. Until recently, this was the version of American prehistory that most experts agreed on. But a new discovery here in Texas is threatening to rewrite the entire story. Archaeologist Mike Collins is a very patient man. For 15 years, he's been digging away in this small field near Austin. And he's found something that no one expected.
So, Mike, what sort of dates have you got coming out here?
We have the entire prehistory of Central Texas represented at this site. The kinds of artifacts we find and the few absolute dates that we have tell us that people were here from 500 years ago back 13,500 years ago. Even more importantly, we have stuff below that.
Below Clovis, so older than Clovis?
Older than Clovis, pre-Clovis,
right
here at this site.
But for years, archaeologists have thought that Clovis was the first culture in the Americas.
You know, most archaeologists have thought that, but there's a few of us that have known better. And over on the other side of the site, you can see the Clovis level and you can see artifacts below it. You want to see that?
I'd love to see it.
Let's go see it.
Mike, this is an incredibly deep test pit.
Yes, it's a deep test pit, and we're really interested in this part of it right here. Because right through here we get Clovis artifacts, but as we dug down, we continue to get artifacts below that for about 20 or 25 centimeters more. A nice flake here, for example, with a platform and good flake scars on it. We have one date from down here of 14,400 years.
14,400?
Yeah.
So that's pre-Clovis?
By 1,000 years.
I mean, that's amazing because that makes us rethink all of our theories about early Americans.
Yes, we have to rethink our paradigm. We have to come up with a new accounting of the peopling of the Americas.
Mike, how sure are you about the date of these artifacts?
It's just one date, so you need to corroborate it with further evidence, and that's what we're working on.
Now, we can only draw tentative conclusions from the evidence emerging here, but our grand theory about how humans first got into North America is starting to look decidedly dodgy. Because if there really were people living here at Gault as early as Mike says there were, then there must have been another route into the Americas, because the ice-free corridor wasn't open yet. But what I need is more proof. And if the claims coming out of South America are to be believed, then they may have even earlier and more compelling evidence than I've seen here in Texas.
Oh, it is as basic as that great American covenant, e pluribus unum, out of many one. And so the racial wealth gap is about all of us. America is great not in spite of its diversity, but because of it. And, you know, I'm someone who is an iteration of the American dream. Honestly, I still pinch myself every few days. I can't believe I get to do this job.
Hard-fought campaign, you got me for 6 more years.
You're looking at a kid who grew up in public housing. And, you know, I'm the first college graduate in my family. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for programs like Head Start. Another federal program called Upward Bound put me on a college campus every summer as a high school student. So although I lived in the housing projects, I could imagine myself on a college campus because I was literally on a college campus. And then if it weren't for Pell Grants and low-interest student loans, I wouldn't have been able to get the fine education that I've been able to get. And I'd like to think that it was a good investment. At least I work every day to make good on the investment that America has made in me. And so I think when we invest in our children, and most poor people are children, we strengthen the future of our country and we help to ensure that the 21st century, like the 20th century, will be the American century. The thing about this job is the big wins are slow, they are far and in between. This work is not for the faint of heart. But part of what I do is I take the long view. I mean, look, even as we continue to fight and struggle and engage with these racial issues, how do I know we can make progress? Because I'm sitting in this office. Georgia was represented by two very effective United States senators. I don't mind giving them their due. They brought great things home for Georgia, but they were both segregationists. And as I sit in this office, the other senator, also a segregationist, very effective. This building is named after the other Georgia senator. And so after I won for the 5th time in less than 3 years, because I'd gone up in seniority, they said, well, you can move now, Senator, to a larger office. I took the larger office, but I said it had to be in this building because there is, for me, it is a continuing reminder of what is possible in America. I passed the statue of that senator almost every day on my way to my office. And so it reminds me of the progress that we've made, and that even in tough times, even in a moment that feels like a setback, it very well, if we do our work, can be a setup for a comeback.
The Monarchs come to these mountains in Michoacan in central Mexico starting in late October.
Do you still get excited going up to see them?
Every time. There's no substitute.
One of our guides, Jorge Ricards, is the director of the nonprofit World Wildlife Fund in Mexico. The monarchs roost in patches of fir and pine trees 11,000 feet up. But it's hard to see them at first. There are what appear to be clumps of dead leaves hanging from sagging branches. But those are butterflies. Tens of thousands of them clustered together in trees all around.
There's so many of them on the branches of the trees that the branches are all pointing toward the ground.
Imagine the lightness of a butterfly, and there are so many of them here that they actually bend the trees.
The monarchs are in a kind of hibernation. On the way here, they've fattened up on nectar, which helps them survive and rest through the long winter months. The climate on this mountain is ideal. The canopy of trees protects the butterflies from storms, and though the air is cool, it's relatively humid, so they stay hydrated. On the forest floor all around us, monarchs litter the ground, but most are not dead. They've just fallen from trees during the night, and their muscles are too cold for them to fly. Cup them in your hands, you can revive them with your breath.
There you go. Yeah, he likes you.
When the sun begins to hit the trees, flashes of orange appear. The monarchs are warming and slowly opening their wings. Why are they coming here?
Well, that's a big mystery. Maybe it's a prehistoric route. Maybe it was determined by geographical conditions in terms of topography. Maybe it had to do with climate.
You're talking about multiple generations who all have this exact same instinct and know where to go and all go to the exact same spot.
That's one of the most magical things that can happen in the natural world. How do they know?
After about 4 months in Mexico, this super generation of monarchs are near the end of their long life cycle. They're finally ready to mate and migrate north to lay their eggs. They'll die before they can make it back to where they were born, and their offspring might not live long enough to get there either. But future generations will, and there's an army of people trying to help them.
Oh, you got one.
In Kansas, volunteers come out to catch and tag monarchs so scientists can track their migration.
Good job, dude.
They're recruited by Chip Taylor, an 87-year-old ecologist who's been fascinated by monarchs since he was a child. Taylor founded a nonprofit called Monarch Watch at the University of Kansas 30 years ago.
Nice.
And so far, it's helped tag more than 2 million of them.
How do you tag a butterfly that's so delicate?
This is a rough butterfly, and it has to go thousands of miles. So it's a pretty tough butterfly.
It's resilient.
Yeah, it's resilient.
But that resilience is being tested. Monarchs returning to the U.S. need milkweed plants to lay their eggs on. It's the only source of food their newly born caterpillars will eat. But milkweed is now hard to find. Monarch Watch encourages people to plant milkweed in their gardens and on public land, creating what they call monarch way stations. Less than 20% of the monarchs that head out on this miraculous migration actually make it to the mountains of Michoacan. Scientists say worsening storms and rising temperatures kill off many, though this past year the number of monarchs that survived the trip nearly doubled.
Local people believe that the monarchs are the returning spirits of...
That is correct.
Of the dead.
That is correct, yes. So who knows, maybe you are reviving, you're helping someone's ancestor fly back. Yes, indeed. So it's very magical.
Let's turn now to what's happening with Harvard University. The university has sued the Trump administration over its decision to freeze more than $2 billion in grants. The school claims the government cannot identify any rational connection between anti-Semitism concerns and the variety of research it has frozen as a punishment. CBS News legal reporter Katrina Kaufman joins me now to talk more about this. So, Katrina, tell us more about the university's position in this lawsuit and how the administration is responding. It strikes me that this is one of the first large institutions to push back on the president, and perhaps they may find themselves on their back feet.
Vlad, you're absolutely right. Harvard is the first university to stand up to the Trump administration. Some of their arguments here are that their First Amendment rights are being violated by the Trump administration, saying that they're going to take away this funding from the university, that it infringes on academic freedom and would create leverage over the academic institution for them to wield this. They also say that civil rights statutes are being violated here. And as you were referencing, Vlad, what Harvard says is that a lot of the impact of this would actually be on hospitals, on very important medical research, things that have nothing to do with the anti-Semitism that the Trump administration says it takes issue with. The president of Harvard is Jewish. He says that he does recognize that there are some issues with anti-Semitism there, and that is something he plans to tackle. Now, the government's response is that they say that this funding for Harvard is a privilege and that Harvard is not complying with the conditions that they need to continue receiving it.
Uttarakhand, land of the gods. This Himalayan gateway, once replete with alpine splendor, now lies half abandoned, a pale shadow of its former self.
में हमारे पास 113 बच्चे थे, लेकिन धीरे धीरे बच्चे कम होते गए। स्थिति ये है कि आज हमारे पास सिर्फ 8 बच्चे रह गए।
10-year-old Varnika lost her father at an early age. Her mother works as a cook for 2,000 rupees a month. The family of 5 survive on her meager income.
गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से बच्चों को एक तो यूनिफॉर्म मिलती है, एक मिड डे मील मिलती है बच्चों को, एक बच्चों को ये भी मिलता है बुक्स मिलती है बच्चों को, लेकिन स्टेशनरी नहीं मिलती है बच्चों को। बिना स्टेशनरी के पढ़ाई नहीं हो सकती है सर। स्टेशनरी जो है अपनी जेब से लाते हैं क्योंकि वो पेरेंट्स नहीं दे पाता है।
With a population in excess of 1.3 billion, there exist huge economic disparities between the different regions of India. One way of filling these gaps is through public initiative and selfless service. Ambuj Joshi is a young animation entrepreneur based in Dehradun.
मैंने सोसाइटी से बहुत कुछ लिया है क्योंकि आर्टिस्ट एक ऐसा व्यक्ति होता है जो कि पूरी सोसाइटी के सपोर्ट से ही क्रिएट होता है, और मैं यही चाहता हूँ कि मैं भी अब सोसाइटी को जो मैंने लिया है वो किसी न किसी वे में वापस कर पाऊँ। ऐसा एक प्रोजेक्ट है मिशन एजुकेशन नाम का। मिशन एजुकेशन में गरीब बच्चों को सपोर्ट किया जाता है, उनके एजुकेशन को, और क्योंकि लर्निंग का और आर्टिस्ट का एक बहुत डीप कनेक्शन है, और वही कनेक्शन जो है वो मुझे इस प्रोजेक्ट में एक अपॉर्चुनिटी नज़र आई जो मैं वापस दे पाऊँ।
Manav Utthan Sewa Samiti is a socio-spiritual charitable organization led by the visionary Shri Satpal Ji Maharaj, who aims to promote social harmony through the dissemination of spiritual knowledge.
शिक्षा का दान सबसे बड़ा दान है। अगर हम एक गरीब बच्चे को रोटी देते हैं तो रोटी खाने के बाद फिर उसे भूख लगेगी, परंतु उसे अगर हम शिक्षित करते हैं तो वो अपने लिए रोटी कमा सकता है, अपने पैरों पर खड़ा हो सकता है। If we educate a child, we educate a nation.
The simple value of sharing is tremendous, but it's just that people are hesitant because they don't know what they can share with someone. So that's where the team of Mission Education worked very well, of reaching individually to teachers, principals, and the students, and explaining to them that how a little contribution for them can really change lives.
मिलते हैं कलेक्टिवली, सारे स्टूडेंट्स जहाँ पर हैं उनको प्रेजेंट करते हैं। फिर क्या करते हैं, हमारी वही टीम क्लासरूम में जाके उनको छोटे स्मॉल ग्रुप में जाके बताती है कि आपका छोटा सा शेयर जो आप शेयर करेंगे ये कितना बड़ा हेल्पफुल हो सकता है। जब वो फिल हो जाता है हमारे बच्चे वहाँ पर पहुँचते हैं, उनके सामने उस मटेरियल को वहाँ पर निकाला जाता है, उसकी लिस्टिंग की जाती है और वो एक लिस्ट उस स्कूल के साथ शेयर की जाती है। अकॉर्डिंग टू नीड हमने क्या किया, वो पैकेट बनाए। हमने 3 कॉपी रखी, उसमें एक पेंसिल रखी, एक कटर रखा, एक पेन रखा, उसका सेट बनाया और हमारी टीम मटेरियल लेके जाती है और उनको डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करती है।
वर्णिका,
थैंक यू दोस्तों जिन्होंने मेरे लिए काफ़ी किताबें भेजी हैं, उनसे मैं पढ़कर आपको कुछ बनकर दिखाऊंगी।
There was a very big question that was on all our minds is what we'll do next. We came across an idea that there are a lot of people in the cities who cannot even afford city education. We reached the conclusion that let's have a classroom in a bus which is mobile.
जब से हमने स्टार्ट किया है तो उनके पेरेंट्स काफ़ी खुश हैं कि हम लोग तो कुछ नहीं पढ़ पाए, कम से कम ये बच्चे इतना बेसिक तो पढ़ लें। हम इनको बेसिक शिक्षा दे रहे हैं कि अपना अगर इनको हिसाब किताब करना है, मजदूरी भी करनी है तो ठेकेदार से पैसे ले सकें।
और हम सभी को निमंत्रण देते हैं कि आप हमारे साथ शेयर कीजिए, आप हमारे साथ पार्टनरशिप में आइए, आप हमारे साथ कोऑपरेट करिए ताकि हम राष्ट्र का निर्माण कर सके और एक शिक्षित राष्ट्र बना सके।
Crossing Brooklyn Ferry. Flood tide below me. I see you face to face. Clouds of the west, sun there half an hour high. I see you also face to face. Crowds of men and women attired in the usual costumes. How curious you are to me. On the ferry boats, the hundreds and hundreds that cross returning home are more curious to me than you suppose. And you that shall cross from shore to shore years hence are more to me and more in my meditations than you might suppose. The impalpable sustenance of me from all things at all hours of the day, the simple, compact, well-joined scheme, myself disintegrated, everyone disintegrated, yet part of the scheme, the similitudes of the past and those of the future, the glories strung like beads on my smallest sights and hearings, on the walk in the street and the passage over the river, the current rushing so swiftly and swimming with me far away, the others that are to follow me, the ties between me and them, the certainty of others, the life, love, sight, hearing of others. Others will enter the gates of the ferry and cross from shore to shore. Others will watch the run of the flood tide. Others will see the shipping of Manhattan north and west, and the heights of Brooklyn to the south and east. Others will see the islands, large and small. 50 years hence, others will see them as they cross, the sun half an hour high. 100 years hence, or ever so many 100 years hence, others will see them, will enjoy the sunset, the pouring in of the flood tide, the falling back to sea of the ebb tide. It avails not time or place, distance avails not. I am with you, you men and women of a generation or ever so many generations hence. Just as you feel when you look at the river and sky, so I felt. Just as any of you is one of a living crowd, I was one of a crowd. Just as you are refreshed by the gladness of the river and the bright flow, I was refreshed. Just as you stand or lean on the rail, yet hurry with the swift current, I stood, yet was hurried. Just as you look at the numberless masts of ships and the thick-stemmed pipes of steamboats, I looked. I too many and many a time crossed the river of old, watched the 12th-month seagulls, saw them high in the air floating with motionless wings, oscillating their bodies, saw how the glistening yellow lit up parts of their bodies and left the rest in strong shadow, saw the slow wheeling circles and the gradual edging toward the south, saw the reflection of the summer sky and the water, had my eyes dazzled by the shimmering track of beams, looked at the fine centrifugal spokes of light round the shape of my head in the sunlit water, looked on the haze on the hills southward and southwestward, looked on the vapor as it flew in fleeces tinged with violet, looked toward the lower bay to notice the vessels arriving, saw their approach, saw aboard those that were near me, saw the white sails of schooners and sloops, saw the ships at anchor, the sailors at work in the rigging or out astride the spars, the round masts, the swinging motion of the hulls, the slender serpentine pennants, the large and small steamers in motion, the pilots in their pilot houses, The white wake left by the passage, the quick, tremulous whirl of the wheels, the flags of all nations, the falling of them at sunset, the scalloped-edged waves in the twilight, the ladled cups, the frolicsome crests and glistening, the stretch afar growing dimmer and dimmer, the gray walls of the granite storehouses by the docks, on the river the shadowy group, the big steam tug closely flanked on each side by the barges, the hayboat, the belated lighter. On the neighboring shore, the fires from the foundry chimneys burning high and glaringly into the night, casting their flicker of black contrasted with wild red and yellow light over the tops of houses and down into the clefts of the streets. These and all else were to me the same as they are to you. I loved well those cities, loved well the stately and rapid river. The men and women I saw were all near to me, others the same, others who look back on me because I looked forward to them. The time will come, though I stop here today and tonight.